Thanks for stopping by today. And before we get to going with today's content, I just wanted to take a few minutes to thank everybody for all of their likes, all of their subscriptions, and quite a few of you have sent me thanks. A lot of you have asked, what is a thanks? Well, a thanks is a button that's right next to the share button on the lower part of your YouTube screen, and that gives you the ability to go ahead and contribute to my channel. What I'm doing is I'm taking those contributions and I'm slowly upgrading the equipment that I use to shoot my videos. And I'm hoping it's making a difference. So thank you to the ones that have provided me some funds to upgrade my equipment. I'm going to continue to do so. And I hope that you enjoy the content in the channel. Let's talk a little bit about what's behind me. That is a piece of 1/4 inch green glass acrylic that I sublimated on my logo and a background. One of the things that I've been hinting around with is that I was going to provide some videos that had a laser side to it and a sublimation side to it. And today is the day. We're going to give this a try. Let's talk a little bit about my opinion so far of being able to have a laser and then do sublimation. And what I will tell you is that you'll be amazed on how many more opportunities and products you can offer your customers. One of the things that I always struggled with when I was doing my laser projects is you couldn't provide a lot of color. And I absolutely hate to paint, so that wasn't an option for me. Where when you get into dye sublimation, there is just so many things you can do. And I'm finding that having a laser and being able to sublimate things that you cut out on your laser, like a piece of acrylic, there is just a whole bunch you can do, and the sky is the limit when you really think about it. So we're going to go through a couple of simple projects today. We're going to start in Lightburn. We're going to create our cut files. We're going to export those as SVGs. We're going to open them up in Affinity Designer. Now, Affinity Designer is a new software to me. I've only been using it a couple of months. I've used most all of the other big name brands, including Inkscape and all the other products, and I really like Affinity Designer. It's very user-friendly, it's reasonably priced, and I'm finding that I pick up things pretty fast in this. So we're going to jump into Affinity Designer, we're going to do some simple designs, and I'm going to show you how the dance between having a laser and doing sublimation can really turn out some fun projects. Let's go check it out. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just bring in your graphic, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to offset this graphic to create a pattern for what we want to cut, with the laser we want to cut out. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my graphic. I'm going to go to offset. I'm going to offset it to 0.20 on the outward side, and I'm going to say OK. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ungroup this because I want to clean this up a little bit. I want to get rid of a couple of these spots that are going to be cut out that I don't want. And then you notice all these wiggly lines. I don't want that, so I'm going to come up here to my node editing tool. I've got to select what you want, and then I'm going to go node edit. And I'm going to just select all these nodes down here and hit D, not delete, but D, the letter D, letter D, letter D, and that cleaned that up. Next thing I'm going to do is I got to make a little spot for a hole right here. I'm just going to grab this node and move it up. Okay. Then I'm going to come to my circle tool. I need to hold the shift key down and draw out a circle. That's probably about right. I don't like this little dip right here, so we're going to go ahead and go back to our node editing tool. Select our outline, select node editing, and we're just going to move these handles down to smooth that out. Maybe bump that out just a little bit.
All right. So at this point, I've got my outline. I'm going to go back to the select tool. This is going to be my cut layer. This is actually going to be the shape of the piece of acrylic that we cut out. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn that red, because red is cut for me. I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to group both the outline and the hole. And that's going to be what we're actually going to use to cut out our material. Now the other thing that we're going to need is we're going to need one more offset as a guide that we're going to use in Affinity Designer for our sublimating pattern. You always want to make your graphic in sublimation just a little bit bigger than your actual product. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and select that. I'm going to go back to the outline tool, and I certainly don't need it that big. Maybe even 1/10 would be, or even 0.05 would be plenty. You're just giving yourself that's how big you're going to build your graphic to make sure that it's easy to line up. And so this one, I'm going to go ahead and go as black. And that way I know that it's my offset. Come up here. I'm going to ungroup that for just a second because I just need to get rid of this black in the middle. Okay. And at this point, we're done in far as the design piece. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to export each one of these to my desktop, and we're going to export them as SVGs because that's what we need to use when we get back into Affinity Designer. I'm also going to turn my logo black because our design is going to be black as well. So this is how we do this. I'm going to do this one at a time. I'm going to go ahead and select this one and say export. And I'm going to just do it to my desktop at this point, and I'm going to go outline, buffer of logo design. I'm going to say save. It was SVG. Then I'm going to go ahead and say file, export. ACRY. Acrylic outline. And then last but certainly not least, I'm going to make sure that it's all grouped, and I'm going to go ahead and export my actual logo design. And so this is going to be logo. We'll save it. Now, once we get the acrylic cut out, we're pretty much done with Lightburn. We'll be jumping into Affinity Designer to lay the rest of this out. But you can see that it's not hard, and it gives you a great base for going from your laser to your design software. Now you can do the opposite as well. You can start in Affinity Designer and go back into Lightburn. You have the ability to export as an SVG or a PNG, and Lightburn handles all of those very well. So next we're going to jump into Affinity Designer and get this layout going. Okay, so this is Affinity Designer, and this is not intended to be an instructional video portion on Affinity Designer. There's a ton of YouTube videos out there that will show you how to use this product. Again, I'm just learning it still, but I thought I'd show you the simple part of the project that we're going to do today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to New. I'm going to go ahead and generate a letter-sized workspace at 400 dpi. It's going to have a transparent background, and I'm going to go ahead and create it. Now this is a paper size that I'm going to print out these logos on. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here to the place tool, and we're going to come over here and we're going to place the outline buffer for our design, and we're going to say open. And then I'm going to put that right in the middle, and I've got my object snaps on, so it's going to show me my alignment so I can be right in the middle, and I'm just going to click the mouse, and that's going to go ahead and fill in. Now you might remember that we exported just an outline, an SVG outline, and when it is imported into Affinity Designer, it comes in solid. And what we have to do is, it's an SVG right now, we have to change it, basically convert it to curves. So I have the ability to just make the outline, just use a stroke instead of having it filled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say edit document, and you'll notice that it turned it into a curve. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to come back over here to our original document, and I'm going to paste it. It's going to come up over here. And I'm going to get rid of our original SVG line, and now we've created this to curves. I can go ahead and put it back in the middle. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this to outline. The next thing I'm going to do is I don't want this filled, I want it just an outline. So I'm going to go ahead and swap these. And we're going to go to stroke and increase our stroke so we can see it. Now what this does is this is going to give us a black line on the outside of our design. This is also going to give us a place to drop in our background, and it won't bleed outside of this SVG line. You'll see here in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add my other elements to this design. We're going to go back to the place tool, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the logo, and I'm going to say open, and then I'm going to go back to my center tool, and if I just click it, it will place it in the center just like I did this outline. And so just remember, when you're saving SVGs in Lightburn, whatever color you save that as in Lightburn, that's the color it's going to be imported into Affinity Designer. Okay, so we've got our outline, we've got our logo. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this, I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to go ahead and place my Savage Storm. Place it in here. You notice it's much bigger. The first thing I'm going to do is come down and use the aspect ratio lock it. And then I'm going to resize this, and I'm going to just take this. I got these on design bundles, this Savage Storm. So I've got this sized about what I want. I've got the outline for my design. This is one of the things that I really like about Affinity Designer. Watch how easy it is for me to drop this image in the shape of this outline. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to move the outline up one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the picture and I'm going to drag it into the outline, and you'll notice, pay attention to the see the little bar that goes all the way across. I don't want that. I want it so it is indented like that. You also notice that my picture disappeared. I'm going to let go, and now this is where the magic happens. Pretty cool. Now what I've got to do is I've got to take my logo and I've got to put it above there. And so now I've got my design. We've got some tweaking to do, but here we go. All right, so I've got my basic design done, but the background is way too dark, and I want to put some special effects on my logo. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, now that we've got the basic design laid out, we've got to do some tweaking to make it look a lot better. It's way too dark. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my background, and I want to brighten it up some. So I've selected my background layer. I'm going to come down here to adjustments. I'm going to click levels, and I'm going to go ahead and brighten it up. Get it pretty bright. Okay. Then if I want, this is the other thing I love about this process. I can go ahead and hit it again and go to hue and saturation level. And at this point, if I didn't want the blue, I could make it pretty much any color I wanted. So you can see that just with a quick slide of that hue shift, you can recolor things. My favorite color is blue. We're also going to just add a little bit more saturation shift to pump it up just a little bit. Maybe go back to the level and increase the brightness just a little bit. Right about there. Again, this is going to be personal preference. Okay, I've got that done. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want my name to be a little more readable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a box, and I'm going to come over here to color, and I'm going to use the dropper tool. So I'm going to hold down, I'm going to pick a real light portion of this design. It's going to color pick it. And now I just filled in, there we go. Now I've got a box with no stroke or no line around the middle of it. And so we've got that taken care of. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put a special effect. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep my rounded rectangle layer selected. I'm going to come down here to the FX. That's the special effects tool, and I'm going to come up here to Gaussian blur, and I'm going to blur that to soften it up some. So you really can't see the edges. The other thing that I can do if I want to is I can also change the opacity on that background. So this is what it was without the application. It's readable, but it's not great. Just a little bit of color really makes that a lot easier to read. Okay, I've got that done. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my logo, and I'm going to put in some special effects, some bevel and emboss, those type of things. I'm going to say bevel and emboss. I'm going to come over here to my radius slider. We can even put a 3D if we want. Sometimes it really dresses it up. Sometimes one works better than another. So again, just play with it. See what you like better. It's all about what you like. Get some specular highlights going in there. All right. And so now we went from that to that to that. And so now the only thing we've got to do is print these out on I've got a Epson EcoTank 15,000 and with Cosmos ink. Been real happy with that combination. And we'll print out we'll print these out, and then the next we're going to go to the press and get these pressed on 2 or 3 different substrates. Okay, I've got 3 different substrates cut out here. I've got, this is 1/4 inch green glass cast acrylic. I've got, this is 1/4 inch extruded acrylic. And then I've got the single-sided Unisub hardboard. And so these are the 3 substrates I'm going to press. And we'll see how it works. Green glass, clear, extruded acrylic. I hear that using extruded doesn't work near as well as using cast. We're going to find out today. And then I use a lot of this. This is Unisub. It's about as expensive as acrylic, but boy, it will give you some absolute stunning color. And you can get this Unisub hardboard either in single-sided or double-sided. And so next we're going to go ahead and put the patterns on them. And so if I walk over here, let me grab, so you've got two different patterns. You've got one where you don't have the text flipped, and then the other one you have the text flipped. And the reason being is when you're putting them on acrylic, you're putting them on the back side, and you don't need to mirror your design. So just leave it regular. For the Unisub, for the single-sided Unisub, because we're putting it on this way, we'll have to mirror that design. And so now you can kind of see why. Let me see if I can get in some little better light here. You can see why we put that big black line around the edge. And what we do is we put this down, face down, and this way we get a nice even alignment. So all you're doing is you're putting that face down, you're moving it around so you have equal spacing all the way around. And then what you would do is you would put heat tape down to hold this in place, because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to flip it over so the paper is on the top side for the heat press to get to it. So that's going to be next. I'm going to go ahead and place all these, get these taped down, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've got all three substrates taped down. You notice this one is face down. That is a Unisub single-sided. And then I've got the other two. That's the green glass 1/4" acrylic, and this is the clear extruded acrylic. And you can see why we don't have to flip them, because of the they just shine through. And then this design was reversed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put it in this press. I've got a Fusion Hottronics 16 by 20 press. And we're going to press these at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit in about 60 seconds. And we're going to let these cool before we take these off. And so I'll show you how we put the paper in, we do the press, and then we'll set them to cool, and then we'll pull them off once they cool. So I flipped this. This is the 1/4" clear acrylic. You see, and so the sub paper is up, and then you want a paper on the bottom, a paper on top, and that's because what happens when you press this with this heat, the ink on that paper actually vaporizes and goes right into the acrylic. And so once it's there, you can't scrape it off. It's pretty much indelible. And then we'll go ahead and get a little synthetic sheet here and put it off. And then we're going to go ahead and pull this down and press it at medium to high pressure, about 7 pressure for 60 seconds. And we'll come back. Okay, let's take a look. This is the Unisub. This is always my favorite part. Just going to go ahead and pull this off. Check that out. Let's get this tape off. Turn this over. Now that is on the Unisub, and that's exactly what we saw on Affinity Designer. So imagine what you could create by doing that. So that is a single-sided Unisub, vibrant. This finish too is very durable. Now it's not made for outside, but you can take a screwdriver to this stuff, and it just is bulletproof. It is you can see how shiny it is. A lot of fun. I've done a lot of Unisub, and it comes out like this every time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the acrylic pieces. Well, here they are with the paper taken off, cooled off a little bit so I can handle them. This is the Unisub, the 1/8" single-sided Unisub. You can see the the colors on these is just vibrant. This is the 1/4 inch acrylic. A little brown spot was on that piece of acrylic before I started. But as you can see, you got to remember that the sublimation ink is transparent. And so, but anyway, here's our first project done. A lot of fun. Just imagine the possibilities.